Imagine starting a road trip around the world with 5 cars and 270 friends. Now imagine only one car and 18 friends make it home. That's exactly what happened to Ferdinand Magellan in 1519. His dream trip became history's deadliest adventure. Ferdinand Magellan believed he could sail around the entire world. This was like saying you could fly to the moon in 1519. Most people thought the Earth was much smaller than it was. Think about planning a camping trip to a place you've never been. You pack what you think you'll need for 3 days. But then you discover the trip takes 2 weeks. That's what happened to Magellan, except with ships and an entire ocean. Magellan convinced the Spanish king to give him 5 ships. He promised to find a western route to the Spice Islands. These islands had valuable spices like nutmeg and cloves. European traders paid huge amounts of money for these spices. The Spanish king wanted to beat Portugal in the spice trade. Portugal controlled the eastern route around Africa. Spain needed a different path to get rich from spices. Magellan gathered 270 men for his voyage. These weren't just any sailors. They were explorers, soldiers, and craftsmen. Each man believed they would return home as a hero with pockets full of gold. The 5 ships left Spain in September 1519. They carried enough food for 2 years. They had weapons, tools, and trading goods. Everything seemed perfect for their grand adventure. But Magellan had one big problem. He had never sailed across the Pacific Ocean before. Nobody had. They didn't know how big it was. They thought it would take a few weeks to cross it. The Pacific Ocean is 12,000 miles wide at its widest point. That's like driving from New York to Los Angeles 4 times. Magellan's small ships would have to cross this massive body of water with limited supplies. Can you imagine starting a journey without knowing how long it will take? What would you pack differently if you knew the trip was much longer than expected? Magellan's first major challenge was finding a way through South America. He needed a passage from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. This passage didn't appear on any map because no one had found it yet. It's like trying to find a secret door in a huge mansion. You know it exists somewhere, but you don't know which room it's in. You have to check every room one by one. Magellan spent months sailing along South America's coast. His ships faced terrible storms and freezing temperatures. The crew members started getting sick from bad food and cold weather. Some sailors wanted to turn back home. They thought Magellan was crazy for continuing the search. 3 ship captains even tried to mutiny against him. Magellan had to fight his men to keep control. Winter came while they were still searching. The ships had to stop and wait for better weather. During this time, many sailors died from disease and starvation. The expedition was falling apart before they even found the passage. Finally, in October 1520, they discovered a narrow waterway. This passage twisted and turned through mountains and islands. The water was rough and dangerous. Strong winds pushed the ships in different directions. One ship got lost in the maze of waterways. The crew became so scared that they turned around and sailed back to Spain. Now Magellan had only 4 ships left. The passage took over a month to navigate. It was much longer and more complicated than anyone expected. Today, we call this waterway the Strait of Magellan, named after the explorer who first sailed through it. When they finally reached the Pacific Ocean, Magellan was relieved. The water looked calm and peaceful compared to the dangerous strait. He named it Pacify Sea, which means peaceful in Spanish. But this peaceful ocean would soon become their biggest nightmare. Have you ever been lost while trying to find a new place? How did it feel when you finally found your way? Magellan thought crossing the Pacific would take 3 or 4 weeks. He was completely wrong. The ocean crossing took over 3 months. This mistake almost killed his entire crew. Imagine packing lunch for a day trip to the beach. But then your car breaks down and you're stuck there for 3 months. You'd run out of food very quickly. That's what happened to Magellan's sailors. The ships ran out of fresh food after just a few weeks. The sailors had to eat rats, leather, and sawdust to survive. Many men got a disease called scurvy from not eating fruits and vegetables. Scurvy made their teeth fall out and their skin turn black. Some sailors became too weak to work. Others went crazy from hunger and thirst. Dead bodies were thrown overboard almost every day. The Pacific Ocean seemed endless. Day after day, the sailors saw nothing but water in every direction. There were no islands, no land, no other ships. Just an empty ocean stretching to the horizon. Fresh water became their biggest problem. The wooden barrels leaked, and the water turned green and smelly. Sailors had to drink disgusting water or die of thirst. Many chose to drink it and got sick anyway. The ships moved very slowly without any wind. Sometimes they sat motionless for days. The hot sun beat down on the sailors during the day. At night, they shivered in the cold ocean air. Magellan tried to keep his men hopeful. He told them they would find land soon. But privately, he worried they might all die at sea. He had never imagined the Pacific was so huge. After 3 months of suffering, they finally spotted land. The sailors cried with joy when they saw palm trees and beaches. They had reached the islands we now call the Philippines. But their troubles weren't over yet. The worst was still to come. What would you do if you were stuck somewhere with very little food and no way to call for help? Magellan made a deadly decision in the Philippines. He decided to get involved in a local war between 2 tribes. This choice would cost him his life and nearly destroy the entire expedition. Think about visiting a new neighborhood where 2 groups of kids are fighting. The smart thing would be to stay out of their argument. But imagine if you decided to pick a side and join the fight. That's exactly what Magellan did. When the ships reached the Philippines, local chiefs welcomed them. Some chiefs converted to Christianity and became Magellan's allies. But other chiefs refused to accept Spanish rule or the Christian religion. Magellan should have focused on getting supplies and continuing his journey home. Instead, he wanted to prove Spanish power to the local people. He thought his guns and armor would make him unbeatable. A chief named Lapu-Lapu refused to bow down to Spanish authority. He lived on a small island called Mactan. Magellan decided to attack Lapu-Lapu with only 60 men. He was confident this would be an easy victory. The attack took place at dawn on April 27, 1521. Magellan's small force landed on the beach and marched toward Lapu-Lapu's village. But they walked into a trap. Over 1,000 Filipino warriors surrounded the Spanish soldiers. The Filipinos used spears, arrows, and stones as weapons. They knew their island much better than the Spanish invaders did. Magellan's guns weren't very helpful in close combat. His armor was heavy and slowed him down in the tropical heat. The Spanish soldiers quickly became overwhelmed by the large number of enemies. During the fierce battle, Magellan was struck by a poisoned arrow. Then a Filipino warrior hit him with a spear. The great explorer fell to the ground and died on the beach. The remaining Spanish sailors watched their leader die from their ships. They couldn't help him because there were too many enemy warriors. Magellan's fatal mistake had finally caught up with him. Why do you think Magellan chose to fight instead of just getting supplies and leaving peacefully? Magellan dreamed of sailing around the world, but he never completed his journey. His expedition found the passage through South America and crossed the Pacific Ocean for the first time. However, poor planning and bad decisions led to his death in the Philippines. Only 18 of his original 270 sailors made it back to Spain. Magellan proved the world was round, but paid the ultimate price for his discovery. What do you think about Magellan's fatal journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing history stories.